So I've been away from YouTube for about forever. I think you went back and saw that the last one I uploaded was 2012.
2012.
Yeah, it's not like the world ended. It just got really, really busy. And I've been promising to record, and I might have had some friends twist my arm a little bit. And we figured to start off, you should probably figure out who Pet Grad Student is. If you've caught me online and talking on Twitter, or talking with various friends about, I will tell all sorts of stories about Pet Grad Student. And technically, you're not Pet Grad Student anymore because you have an MFA.
A useless MFA.
Technically, all MFAs might be quite useless, but you're a very good writer, so I have faith that you will actually do something with that.
Oh, we'll see.
Don't lose heart. You just keep plugging at it. But so this is Becca, sometimes called Becca Boo, sometimes called the special and unique snowflake, and you will probably understand why.
Poor
But
me.
Becca's one of my students. I don't take a whole lot of students, and I know I've been approached by people who want me to do one-on-one teaching with them, but you don't necessarily want to be the person that I take on for one-on-one teaching, because if you're a person I take on for one-on-one teaching, it means that you have a really unusual life, and maybe a very challenging one. That's not to say anything bad about Becca.
Oh, no, it's true.
So why don't we talk about how you got in contact with me, because it's not like I put out like a little Craigslist ad of going, "Hi, I am an occult mentor. I am going to come and teach you. Please come knock on my door."
You met me whenever my boyfriend got possessed whenever I was in college. So my sophomore year of college, I sent you that panicked message.
Yeah, I can't tell you how random it was that yours happened to be one of the emails that I actually answered, because I'm sure most everybody who sent me an email can attest that I don't often get to them, and for some reason yours stood out.
It was panicked, and there were a lot of expletives.
Yeah, but at first it was kind of like, I'm not sure if this person is crazy or making up a story just because they want attention. But talking to you a little bit more, I realized that you were having legitimate experiences, but some of those experiences, especially with the boyfriend, one of the hard things about, possession of any sort is there are almost always psychological causes, as well as if there are spiritual things present, and you almost can't separate the two. And it's difficult. Typically when somebody has problems like that, if a spirit's been able to take control of them, or even influence their behavior, there was a door in. And that door is usually a weakness due to past abuse, trauma, emotional problems, sometimes drug use, because that causes problems with the person's ability to maintain their boundaries on a psychological level. It makes it so hard to solidly define whether or not possession is actually just a metaphysical thing or if it's a psychological thing, because there's always both factors going on.
Probably was both.
Well, no, it almost certainly was both. I just dealt with something where it was really clearly there was a physiological problem, there was a psychological problem, and these things led to a psychically weakened state that allowed something to latch on to somebody and was influencing his behavior. But, as much as I could deal with the ooky spooky thing that had attached itself to him, things would just come back until he dealt with the trauma, dealt with the childhood issues, and actually went to a good therapist. It's one of the, I don't know, it's one of the things I disagree with certain people's approaches, because they'll think that if you take care of the exorcism part of it, that just solves the problem. And even if the person didn't have trauma to begin with, let's just assume that they were a perfectly normal person and then just this bad thing happened to them. The bad thing has caused a tremendously traumatic emotional event, huge amounts of strain. So even if there were no previous mitigating factors, they should probably go see a good therapist as well, just to deal with the post-traumatic stress.
Oh, it was so scary. I don't want to think about it.
A little stressful for you too?
No kidding. Actually, it was scary. Actually, the only reason, looking back, it was so long ago, but the scariest part was whenever he said all this creepy stuff and then he stopped breathing. Completely. That was scary.
I may have to remove the cat.
Hi, Katja!
But, so the boyfriend. Talk about the possession a little bit.
Well, we were on fall break, and we were out in the middle of the woods in a cabin, so it was very creepy anyway. And I went to bed early because I wasn't feeling good. And he came into my room and did something really weird. He pulled the light out of the wall so that the entire room went pitch black. And I remember thinking he was just being strange. And then he started saying things that I didn't understand, like very like gross things, like go have sex with my brother, who I didn't know. I didn't know his brother at the time. And all sorts of very strange things. And then he like pinned me to the bed and started talking about how he was going to stab me with a knife that I didn't even know he had. I don't think he even had a knife. So it was sort of all this creepy stuff. And then he stopped breathing. His entire face turned red, and there was no air going in, and it literally lasted. It felt like forever, probably a full minute. And then he let in this like really long breath and didn't remember anything from the last 15 minutes.
Now, he hadn't displayed stuff like that before.
No, that was the first time. The only other time that he did something creepy had been probably six weeks before. He'd woke up in the middle of the night and walked to a wall and started looking for the door to something and started patting on the wall saying, "Where's the door?"
Okay, so possibly just sleepwalking.
Right, but this time he wasn't sleepwalking. He was coming in from having hung out with his friends.
Yeah, and now, was he, what you want to describe because you were a fairly normal kid in college, from what I understand, like kind of preppy and stuff. You weren't like the black wearing freakazoid.
No.
And he wasn't either. He's,
No, he was an athlete. Very
athlete.
popular.
Okay, so a jock in Kentucky.
Very outgoing.
What this is college is EKU for you, right? Mm-hmm. Some people might recognize her from the EKU episode of School Spirits. Mm-hmm. So this was really kind of out of left field for you.
I mean, he was a weird, but not like that. Like he was weird in like a playful way, and he had a lot of friends. He was very social. No, that was very strange.
What about the experience made you go, "This is not my boyfriend driving the car"? Because something did. I mean, something stood out to you, but at that time you didn't necessarily understand that you were sensitive the way you are.
Right. I think when he stopped breathing. At first I was just, I mean, he played games sometimes. He was a trickster. So I just assumed that it was one of his games until his face went completely red and there was no oxygen going in. And then when he let in that breath and then really genuinely was terrified because he kept asking me why I was crying. He had no idea what had happened. And I was just like, that's not normal. And I'd never seen anything like it. I'd been dating him for a year and a half. And I was just like, this is completely different from anything I've ever seen out of you.
No, I mean, possession and, demonic possession, they're terms that get tossed around a whole lot, maybe too much, because people don't always understand them adequately. And let's be honest, when, paranormal shows and things are doing things, it's a big hot button issue that scares the pants off of people. But it's a more complicated issue than a lot of people really understand, because there's usually, there's somebody's personality changes, and sometimes, suddenly and radically, but for a spirit to have influence over someone, let alone the ability to actually step into them enough to control their actions and what the words that are coming out of their mouth, there's usually a door. And I don't mean that they were playing with a Ouija board or like, sitting in the dorm room going, "Satan, enter me," although some people are stupid enough to do crap like that. It's more, it's all about psychological boundaries, emotional boundaries. So events in somebody's life, trauma, often you'll find people who have stuff like this happening to them. As you get to know them, you'll learn that there are psychological factors. There's, childhood abuse or, abuse somewhere along the line, something that triggered a weak point, something that could be exploited by the spirit that was deciding to get into them. And one of the things that tends to attract things to people is, when someone is carrying around a lot of negative emotions, past trauma, suppressed memories about really negative experiences, psychically they're kind of curling up around a whole lot of icky stuff. But certain types of spirits are attracted to that. They kind of eat it. And they will find ways to get more and more of that emotional reaction from someone. They'll find ways to trigger them. And they kind of latch on to the person like a lamprey. And sometimes we'll have fun with them, like they did with your boyfriend. Now, one of the hard parts was I don't like diagnosing, if that's a good word for it. I don't like diagnosing cases of possession or even honestly genuine spiritual events like hauntings without actually being there. But you hit enough things with what you were explaining to me to at least give you the advice of, hey, this is kind of not okay. Here are the things to do to help protect yourself. Mm-hmm. Also, if there's a boy holding you down in a bed and he says that he has a knife, you might want to have the great good sense to get the fuck out. GTFO. Sort it out later.
Well, actually, after that happened, we went out, and because I wouldn't stay in the room with him, we went out into the cabin where
Congratulations.
Where all our friends were, and they were just like, "What was that? We thought you guys were just doing the dirty." And I was just like, no. And he was just like, he was so shocked. He was like, it was almost like I was possessed or something. I don't remember any of that. I did leave. I was just like, something weird has happened.
Sometimes you aren't the most.
Sometimes I think I can take the bull head on by the horns. I understand that this was not one of those situations.
Or you'll get immersed in an experience, and then like your practical side, your common sense just flies right out the window. You do have some. I've seen it, just not often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was bad. And then I was just like, that was the last straw. Things are really weird in college. Things had gotten out of control since high school, and I was just like, I need help. There's this weird person I'm reading about on the internet. Maybe they can help me.
And that's another story for another time.